I'm over the moon to be joined on Football CFB by a man who Aston Villa fans rate very highly to this day, and rightly so. Ian Taylor started his career at Port Vale. He had a short spell with Sheffield Wednesday. He won the League Cup at Aston Villa, reached the FA Cup final as well, and also had spells at Derby County and Northampton Town that had success in their own right too. Ian, thank you for joining me.
No problem, Callum. Pleased to be here.
The first question I've got for you, and it's, I suppose, about the present day. I mentioned in the intro you've got such an association with Aston Villa. You still attend games now, you still do bits and bobs in the media and for the club. Just what does Villa mean to you?
Well, where do I start? I think, obviously, I grew up in the area. I'm a Birmingham lad. And I did grow up in a Birmingham City predominant area. And but I got, there was a handful of us who wanted to go and watch Aston Villa, and I managed to get through the blue side and support the claret and blue side. But it was always, like every fan, a dream of mine to play for Aston Villa, and there were a few twists of fate along the way, but I managed to find myself there, which was unbelievable, really, when you think about it and how it all happened and how I did get to Aston Villa. In the end, it's pretty dream-making stuff.
And in terms of getting to Villa, you started playing professionally at Port Vale, but what was your upbringing like with football? Who were your first ever heroes as such?
Well, yeah, firstly, my upbringing, like I said, I was born on the blue side of the city, and well, not born, but raised in the blue side of the city. And I grew up watching the League Championship winning side and the European Cup winning side, because I'm in my 50s now. So yeah, that was my upbringing, and my hero was Gordon Cowans, because he was an all-action midfielder. He's silky, but had a little bit of a crunch in the tackle as well. I tried to model my game on him, but failed miserably. But no, he was my hero growing up. But yeah, that side that won the league and won the European Cup, that was the team that I looked up to.
When you signed for Port Vale as a younger player, what was that experience and opportunity like? Because you make an impact at the club, it's safe to say, very quickly when you get your chance.
Yeah, I mean, a lot's made of the way that Jamie Vardy came through non-league and whatnot. And I had the same journey where I'd been playing non-league for a long time, and I was working as well. I was just working in a warehouse, driving a forklift truck, and playing football part-time. But and I never thought the chance had come along where I'd turn professional. But John Rudge, who was the manager at Port Vale at the time, came in for me, along with a couple of other clubs, and who were at a higher level. But I chose to go to Port Vale because I thought if I go to Port Vale at a lower level, I'd get in the team quicker, and I wouldn't be, playing in the reserves and maybe not getting a shot at first team football. So I picked Port Vale, and as you said, I just hit the ground running when I got there, and I think I scored 24 goals or something in my first season from midfield, which was, I'd had a reputation of doing that in my non-league days, but to go into the league professionally and do that was, again, a dream come true.
It was very special, and one of the moments that I imagine you still think fondly of in your career now is winning the sort of Football League trophy at Wembley. One of the players you played alongside was Bernie Slavin. What was he like to play with? Because he's obviously achieved a lot in the game as well.
Yeah, Bernie's, he's a bit of a cult hero. Not just at Port Vale, but at Middlesbrough as well. And yeah, he was an unbelievable player to play with. Great character, great in the dressing room. I know he does a lot in the media these days, and yeah, he's a funny guy to be around, but a great character and a winner in the dressing room. And he came to Port Vale in the second season I was there, I think, and helped us to get promotion as well. So yeah, I've got nothing but good words to say about Bernie Slavin.
And in
he had a dodgy haircut, but I won't give him any more stick on that.
You mentioned promotion, and that in itself is an incredible achievement, but winning a trophy at Wembley, regardless of what level it's at, must be incredible. And for yourself, what was it like walking out at Wembley in a cup final at a young age?
Well, the strange thing is I'd never been to Wembley before that, and let alone played there. So it was weird, that in itself. But especially in my first season in professional football, to be playing at Wembley, not just once in winning that trophy, but twice in a week, because we played in the playoffs as well. But we lost. It was just unbelievable. I dreamt of scoring, but never managed it. But to be on the winning side was just amazing. And actually, even more weird than that, later on, I think in that season or the season after, I actually went to Wembley and watched Villa play and would beat Manchester United in the League Cup final and win. So that was another thing that was special.
You mentioned how special that is, and of course it is. You're playing well at Port Vale, and there starts to be interest from other clubs. How did you handle that at the time?
I think you just try and cut it out of your mind. I think just playing for Port Vale was a massive milestone for me and a massive thing. So I was just taking that on board because I'd only been there for 2 years. So you hear all the rumours and whatnot, and all these. You hear about all the scouts coming to the games from the big clubs, but you just have to sort of block it out and just carry on and play your own game, really. But when it did come down to it, I think there was Leicester and Wolves and Sheffield Wednesday came in for me, and I can't even remember why I chose Sheffield Wednesday, but they were a big club at the time, and they had some really, really good players there, and that in itself, just walking in the dressing room at Sheffield Wednesday with players like Mark Brighton, David Hurst, John Sheridan, Chris Woods, Des Walker was there at the time. You know what I mean? It was just a team full of internationals, and that was daunting in itself.
Overall, how do you reflect on your time at Sheffield Wednesday? Because, as I say, so many people associate you with the Villa, and for obvious reasons, but that season, although obviously it didn't last long for you there because you went to Villa afterwards, it was still an important part of your career.
Yeah, it was a weird one. I learnt a lot while I was at Sheffield Wednesday, and I was only there for if you include pre-season, 5 months. So probably not even that. So, but I learnt such a lot because, I was staying at Des Walker's place and I was living with him, and the amount that I learnt off him, who was a seasoned pro and international, it was unbelievable. But a slight regret that I didn't kind of make it there. But I was being played out of position and not playing where I wanted to play, where was my best position. So it was one of those where Brian Little, who had just become manager at Villa, he tried to sign me before I went to Sheffield Wednesday, and it came about where Sheffield Wednesday needed a striker. Brian Little still wanted me, and there was a swap deal to be done.
And in terms of Brian Little, I spoke to Brian, funnily enough, a fortnight ago, and you were one of the players that he singled out as having real praise for in terms of application and technical ability. What was he like to work with? Because people forget this, but when you go into Villa and when Brian Little took over as manager, they were struggling at the wrong end of the table for that first 6 months.
Yeah, it was difficult because, I mean, like you said, we were talking about this the other day, myself and Brian, and when he first came into Villa, there was a lot of ageing professionals and a lot of lads who were coming to the end of their contracts and whatnot, and he had to sort quite a bit out, and I was his first signing when he came in, and again, that was daunting in itself because there's expectation on myself because Brian Little had just become the manager. I'm his first signing. Who is this guy, kind of thing? He's been at Sheffield Wednesday for 5 months. He'd just come from Port Vale before that in League Two. So people were probably thinking, I'm not so sure about this signing, but I had to prove myself, and not just to the fans, but to the players in the dressing room as well. Because again, like I said, there were a lot of internationals in that dressing room, and they were probably thinking, who's this Ian Taylor who's just virtually come out of non-league? So I had to prove myself pretty quickly.
Being a kid who was on the whole end and loved Villa to bits, what's it like when you walk out with that jersey on at a packed Villa Park? Is it something that's got any nerves at all, or is it more just sheer excitement?
Oh, massive. I think a bit, probably 50-50 both. Big nerves, but the expectation as well. All my friends and family were there because, you know, we played at Arsenal at Highbury in my first game, my debut, where we drew 0-0. And then my next game was at Villa Park against Chelsea. And the amount of tickets for family and friends that I needed to get for the game was unbelievable. But the nerves and everything, it was just unreal. But, you know, to walk out at Villa Park when I'd only been there probably once before. I'd played there once before as a schoolboy in a cup final for my school, which, you know, there was no crowd there, obviously, and it was totally different. But this was a different proposition altogether. You know, hair stood up on the back of my neck, and it was just unreal. But to actually score on my home debut as well, in front of the Holt End where I stood as a kid, was just something else.
It's something that I imagine is hard to put into words, but is that one of the moments, because of how much it meant to you personally, that you look back on with as much fondness as the trophies that you won too?
Yeah, I get asked the question a lot about, you know, what was my favourite goal, and it's definitely that one, my first goal at Villa Park, in my first game at Villa Park, and yeah, and it made it extra special being at the Holt End as well, where all my family and friends were stood and where I used to stand, and, you know, so many people in the city that I knew that were Villa fans and growing up in the city, and yeah, they were all there, and it just made it extra special.
The season after the relegation type struggle that the club were under, when you initially go in and Brian goes in, changes to being a squad that can start moving up the league. You finish fourth in 95-96. You score crucial goals against the likes of Manchester United and Leeds. What was that season like? Because it was a completely different animal, Villa, in terms of where it was to where Brian Little had got it to. He seemed to get the club to exactly where he wanted it at that time.
Yeah, I'm sure when you spoke to Brian, he said that he tried to model his team on the European Cup winning side, and he tried to do that with us, although he did change the formation. And you know, you were talking 25 years ago, and Brian was playing three centre backs with wing backs and three in midfield. You know, same as a lot of people are doing now. So we were doing it back then, but I slotted in nicely, and you know, Brian brought in about five or six players, and we all settled in really, really quickly. And you know, nothing better than to beat Man United 3-1 on the first game of the season as well. So yeah, the fans took to us straight away, and it was a really, really good season.
I asked Brian about two senior players in particular, and you probably know who I'm going to ask about, but Andy Townsend and Paul McGrath, what were they like in and around that Villa team? Because one of the things that surprised me when I spoke to Brian, a lot of people see Andy Townsend as quite a serious guy. He's worked in the media, but Brian was saying he was quite the joker.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. He was probably the loudest voice in the dressing room, and always on the beginning of jokes with people. So yeah, he's a funny guy, and yeah, that was the thing about that dressing room. There's so many characters in the dressing room, and it was a great place to be. But there were winners as well. You know, like you mentioned, Paul McGrath, absolute legend at Villa. The fans used to love him, and he was coming towards the end of his career, and he'd hardly train, and he'd come out on a Friday and train with everybody else, and then be the best player on a Saturday without training all week, which was amazing. Absolutely amazing, because he virtually only had one knee at the time. So yeah, he did fantastically well for us. But I think you're right with regards to Andy Townsend, probably one of one of the unsung heroes of that team at the time, although he was captain. But he was a great leader, led by example, and he got some important goals as well.
I've got to ask you about the late Hugo Iheanacho. He passed away far too young. Brian also described him as being a boisterous character, someone with so much energy and that youthful exuberance that worked well, especially when you were playing three centre backs. What are your memories of him?
Oh, just a great guy. And another guy that the thing about all these guys that I'm mentioning, along with Mark Draper, Tommy Johnson, Gary Charles, we all used to socialise off the pitch as well. And, there'd be 6, 7, 8 of us going out of an evening and socialising, and we all got on so well. And Hugo was one of those. I've got loads of pictures of myself and Hugo and the lads when we used to go out and stuff. And it's such a shame that he passed away in the way he did, and he'd be sadly missed. But he was a hell of a player, and fully deserved his England caps that he got, and should have got more really. But he's such a rock for us, so big and strong and really difficult to get past, and a really, really good player.
In terms of the League Cup success in '96, so many people focus on the final against Leeds United, but the semi-final against Arsenal, it takes some doing to beat the Arsenal side of that era over 2 legs.
Again, like I said, I did an interview with Brian the other day, and I mentioned that and said that game was probably tougher than the final, because, like you say, the players that Arsenal had at the time, and there was fantastic games that we had against them, especially the one at Highbury, and we weren't expected to beat them. So it was brilliant, and it's so good to be part of that. I'm not sure if I was injured for the second leg against Arsenal. I might have been coming back from injury, but such a special occasion. Those semi-finals, 2-legged semi-finals under the lights were fantastic.
When you're going to Wembley in a cup final for Villa, you'd had the success with Port Vale, but you also had the disappointment with Port Vale as well. How did that help you prepare for this final?
Well, I definitely knew what to expect, and like you said, I'd felt both sides of the coin. So I don't know. I didn't really think about the games that I'd had before. I think one of the biggest things I was concentrating on was being better than Carlton Palmer that I was playing against, because in those days you always knew who you were going to play directly up against, and you just wanted to win that battle with them. And I always thought my battle was going to be against Carlton Palmer, because a lot of people, I don't know whether right or wrong, compared me to him. But I just wanted to get the better of him, and I'm hopeful. Well, I hope that I did on the day.
Well, you certainly did on the day as a team, and in terms of yourself, you mentioned being desperate to score at Wembley. It's every young boy's dream. You make that happen in this final, a 3-0 victory. As finals go, it was comprehensive.
Yeah, it pretty much went the way that we wanted to. It's a perfect cup final, really. We weren't really in that much trouble. Scored 3 really good goals, and myself included, luckily. It came a little bit off my shin, but don't tell too many people that. It's in the record books. Won 3-0, and I was a goal scorer. So yeah, and one of the biggest things that sticks out right now is that it's still the last trophy that we won. So I'm hoping that a little bit of me, a little part of me, says I'm hoping that they'll break that hoodoo soon.
And in terms of that success, as I've mentioned a few times, being a fan of the club, when you achieve success with your club, just sum up what that means in the celebrations.
Well, it just makes it that much mean that much more, because you've got family and you've got friends and people that I've grown up with and associated in the city that are supporters of the club, and it means that much more to them as well, knowing somebody and being a friend of someone they've grown up with in the city, who supports the football club, and it just means that much more. So it was a real nice position to be in.
It is a nice position to be in, and again, it's the success that's still there for Villa fans to remember today. Eventually, Brian Little leaves the club. He's replaced by John Gregory. What was that like from your perspective, and how did John compare to Brian? Because they had different styles.
Yeah, they had different styles. I mean, John had coached under Brian as well, so he kind of knew his philosophy. He knew the club's philosophy, and I think that was part of why he was brought on board. It was a disappointment when Brian left, because obviously he signed myself and I had a good relationship with him. But luckily for me, it's with some players it's difficult when a new manager comes in, because they like certain styles, they like certain players, and luckily for me, John Gregory liked the way I played, so I was a bit of a mainstay in the team for him as well.
You were a mainstay in the team, not only in the league, but also in the European run that the club had. What was it like playing in European football as well as playing domestically?
It's fantastic. Villa Park under the lights in European games is just something else. The atmosphere is just unreal. And it was a great experience going to all these different countries and playing against teams that I'd only seen on the TV. Do you know what I mean? So, and we had some fantastic games as well. And I was lucky enough to score in a few. And like I said, to sample scoring on nights like that is just something else. And it's a great experience.
Mainstay in the team, as we've talked about, you scored crucial goals. You'd scored winning goals against the likes of Liverpool as well. But one of the games that I have to ask you about is the game against Coventry, where you get both goals in a Villa win. When you score both goals and you win a match, just what does that feel like?
Well, I was slightly disappointed because I've never got a hat-trick in my career. But I've got a few braces. But it was always nice to score against Coventry, because obviously they're the local rivals as well. So, and especially at their place, which was good. But those games were something else as well. It's difficult right now, where we've got no fans in the stadium. It's such a far cry from what we used to have and what I used to play in front of. It's just something else to play in those games because of the atmosphere and whatnot. And because we were doing so well, the atmosphere at matches was just fantastic. And it's something I do miss, the atmosphere at games. But obviously up until COVID last year, I still sample that on occasions. But to play in front of crowds and to play in front of 40-odd thousand was just something else.
One of the big signings that John Gregory makes is Paul Merson. What was your reaction when Paul came to the club? Because what people think of, this is what frustrates me. I know I'm only 25, but so many younger people think of him as just being on Soccer Saturday. But what a player he was when you actually look at the footballer he was. His ability was insane.
Yeah, fantastic. And he'd probably come to us after his best days as well. And he was still a hell of a player. When you think about it, he was an England international. He'd played at Arsenal for years, played with some top players, won loads of stuff as well. And, he was known as a joker and whatnot. And he was still, you mentioned earlier about characters and everything. And he was another one. Amazing character. And a lot of the things with these guys that I've mentioned is that, I still got the phone numbers now, still speak to them now. And we all became good mates as well. So, and Mercy's one of those. But what a player. He used to use the outside of his right foot countless times. And, he was just so good with it. But, and we, to be honest, me and Mercy, we had a bit of a connection as well, because, the assists that he had for myself were just unreal. And he always used to find me in the box and get the odd goal. But, he liked players like myself, because I'd make runs that he could find me with. So, we had that special connection.
In addition to Merce, you've also got younger players who were coming into the squad at that time, the likes of Lee Hendry, the likes of Gareth Barry as well, who went on to have very good careers in their own right. For yourself, being a local lad and a homegrown player, did you take it upon yourself to try and give those guys some words of advice as they were coming through and wanting to go on and play as many games as you had at that point?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Gareth was like, he was in the team at 16, 17. I think John Gregory gave him his debut at, and, you know, he just had loads and loads of ability. And he was so level-headed for a young guy and for a young player. You always knew that he was going to be a top player. He was just unruffled with anything and just took everything in his stride. He was a quiet lad, but what a hell of a player. And Lee was probably a little bit different. He was a bit more flamboyant, and but what an engine! People don't realise that Lee could run all day, and the engine on him was unbelievable. But he had the skill to go with it, and I think John Gregory really liked him as a player. And again, he came into the team as a youngster and never looked back. We're both really good talents, and both deservedly England internationals as well.
You win the League Cup, as we've talked about, with Villa. You also get to the FA Cup final. This time it's against Chelsea. You win in penalties against Bolton in the semis. Going to Wembley in that game, how did you feel as a squad? Because I think when you look back at that game, you were very unlucky on the day. You had more attempts than Chelsea, and really you were the better side on the day. They just happened to get the goal through Di Matteo.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the greatest cup final in the world, and it's one of our. If you ask any of those lads who played that day, you know, we knew we were well capable of winning that day, but we just didn't perform. But Chelsea didn't either. So yeah, it was I think might have been a bit of a mistake from David James, and Di Matteo just smashed it into the roof of the net. But there wasn't that much between the teams at all. But to get to an FA Cup final, go all that way, and lose in the final like the way we did was disappointing, really disappointing.
You finished sixth in the league that season, that you're runners-up in the FA Cup. You also got to the League Cup semi-finals, and the top scorer in the league was Dion Dublin. What's Dion like? Because, again, the younger generation maybe know Dion now as a presenter and a pundit, but he was a good footballer when he played as well.
Yeah. I mean, it was another great signing for us. It cost quite a bit of money at the time, but again, he was, you know, Dion got into the England squad. He scored countless goals for us, and again, he became a good friend and a good mate, as somebody you know, I'd pick up the phone to now. So, like I said, another great signing. We had a really good side then again, and probably should have done a little bit more, but no, I've got nothing but good things to say about Dion. And one of the good things about Dion is that he was the kind of striker that I liked as well, that could hold the ball up and that I could make runs off as well. So, and he made a few goals for me as well. So, yeah, really good times.
And Merson was a footballing maverick with incredible talent, and you bring another one in David Genola. Just what was he like? Because he was another that, when you think of that Newcastle era and even the Spurs era, very flamboyant, but could create a moment of magic out of nothing.
Yeah. I mean, there's he's such a good guy, such a great guy, and again, keep in touch with David now, and he's the kind of guy that would do anything for you. And you know, I've got a funny story about my wife. She owns her own hair salon in Nottingham, and it was around the time when David was doing all the hair products with adverts on TV and everything. And my wife asked me one day, she was opening a new salon, and she asked me, "Do you think David had opened the salon for me?" I says, "Are you kidding? He's this top star, and he's on TV doing adverts with L'Oreal and whatnot." And she said, "Oh, please ask him to do it, please." And I thought, oh, all right, I'm going to ask him to do it. But I asked him to do it, and he said yes. So, and he came to Nottingham and opened my wife's salon, and there were loads of people there, and wanting to talk to him and whatnot. And I just thought it was just testament to him that he'd go out of his way just to come and open my wife's salon. That wasn't just up the road; it was in Nottingham, 40 miles away. And he came and did it. And I just thought, that's brilliant. That's just the kind of guy he was. And he probably came to Villa after his best days, another one. But what a guy. And he still had some moments of magic when he played for us as well.
John Gregory, again, just like Brian, was a big character, a big figure in terms of the managerial stakes for the Villa. He eventually leaves the club and his replacement is Graham Taylor. What was Graham like to work with? Because another who sadly passed on, but such a gentleman is what players always say about Graham.
Yeah, when Graham came in, it was coming towards, I was probably 32 or something, 31, 32. So I was getting on a bit. And it was one of those where I was picking up little injuries here and there, but I was Graham's kind of player. And his style was a little bit different to the managers that we'd had before. He had to change the team around a little bit as well, and some new players came in. And, we did struggle a little bit, but when I was fit, I played. But, it's probably one of those where, Graham had a fantastic time the first time round at Villa, and it's probably a hard act to follow. And he found it difficult the time when he came back.
A difficult time when he comes back. You mentioned the fact that you're coming towards the end. How do you reflect on your playing career with Villa over the piece? Because as I've said, you win a trophy with the club, you get to a final, you're playing in Europe, you're getting top 6 finishes in the Premier League. I mean, when you look back at it, it's the sort of career and the sort of place that the club would want to be again now more consistently.
Well, yeah, you look back and you think that's probably the most successful time we've had for a long, long time. So to be involved in that is something special. And, I still get fans saying now that, they're comparing the side that we've got now to the side that we had then, and hoping that we can bring those times back from when I was playing. So that's a nice thing to hear. And it's the biggest accolade you can have, really, is that fans are comparing teams to the team I was in. So, yeah, it's nice to hear.
You leave Villa and you join Derby County under a fellow Scotsman and George Burley. You're named captain, top scorer in your first season. Slightly difficult season for the club given the position they were in. But for you personally, top scorer, you stay up, you're the captain. It must have been something that you took pride in given the circumstances.
Yeah, massive pride. Obviously it was disappointing leaving Villa, but I totally understood why. But I made a conscious effort to keep myself fit and strong when I went to Derby, because I wanted to prove to people that I could still do a job. And funny enough, one of Derby's first pre-season games when I went to them was against Villa, and I actually scored the winner in the friendly for Derby, which was like, I had both sets of fans singing my name, which was unbelievable at Pride Park. So that's another quirky thing that's happened in my career. But yeah, to go to Derby, George Burley basically got me in because, it was well documented that they'd paid. There were players there who were on big money, like Ravanelli and Iheanacho, people like that, King Cladsley had gone. And they had to rebuild, and they needed, the likes of myself and some others to come in and just steady the ship, basically, and just keep them in the division. And I had a great season, scored 12 goals, and he made me captain. And I was playing alongside the likes of Tom Huddleston, who went on to do great things as well. And, you had a 33-year-old playing with a 16-year-old in midfield. So, it was good to be able to pass on my experience to the likes of Tom Huddleston and see him go on to great things.
20th place in that first season, as we say, which was a difficult season with the restructuring. George Burley and the club get it right. Again, you captained the squad, this time finishing 4th in the Championship, which, given the competitive nature of that league, as you know, from being a player and being a pundit, a really good season, but ultimately in the end, how disappointing were those playoffs against Preston?
Yeah, Preston were a bogey team for us, and yeah, we just couldn't get past them. Yeah, it was disappointing, but yeah, that season I think towards the end of the season I was in and out the team, and we did struggle towards in the playoffs. But yeah, again, it was just it was great to be part of a team that was trying to achieve things, and that's one thing I've had all through my career. Really, is most of the time I've been at the top end of the table fighting for stuff. So yeah, that's one of the things I can look back on and think, yeah, I've been able to achieve something in some kind of way at the teams that I've been at.
After Derby, you joined Northampton Town, and I have to be honest with you, Ian, I really admire the fact that you went and played for a club like Northampton. And Northampton, of course, are a good club in their own right, but you hear some ex-pros who say, look, when I've played at Premier League or Championship, I don't really want to have to go down, or I don't want to go down. You go there, and again, you back yourself, you make the impact, the club gets promoted under Colin Calderwood, albeit it was at a different level. Obviously, you were there at Port Vale at the start of your career, but how do you reflect on the time at Northampton, given it was the end of your career? Because again, you still have success.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Like I just said, it was great to go somewhere and have an impact, and and now I'm part of Northampton's history as well, which is fantastic at the age of 37 I was at the time. So and contributing as well. And I only went there because basically Colin Calderwood, who was my teammate at Villa, had become manager there, and he said, look, please come, because we want players like you who experienced, and we've got a chance of getting promotion. And that's what happened. And it's just brilliant that I could have an influence on some of the younger players who were there, because there were young players there who went on to are still playing now, the likes of Bradley Johnson, who's at Blackburn, Mark Bunn, who was goalkeeper at Villa, Luke Chambers, who's at Ipswich. Do you know what I mean? So there was I played with Sean Dyche, who was playing at the back then as well. Ian Jess, Scottish international. So we, as a team, we had a good blend of experience and youth, and we got over the line in the end, which was just amazing.
You get over the line, you have that achievement. The following season, you play in League One with the club. The club comfortably survives when you look at the league standings. What again, another unique element of football that I absolutely love. During your last professional game, a number of Villa fans go to the game because it's your last professional game. I mean, if that doesn't sum up how highly regarded you are by the Villa fans, nothing will.
I know. It's just weird because, when we came out to warm up, and you're looking around thinking there's a lot more people here than there usually is. And, and then as part of the crowd starts singing my name, and you just think, and then sort of word got round that there were a load of Villa fans that had come down to the game. And I just thought, just amazing and such a great gesture, because I didn't really have the send-off that I wanted to have when I left Villa. So, it was great that there was a proportion of the fans that wanted to come and give me a proper send-off. And it was just brilliant. And, it was planned for me to come off 15 minutes before the end. And, I had a nice standing ovation when I came off. But then all the Villa fans went home. They didn't even stay till the end of the game. They all went home. So, but it was not. It was brilliant. It was so good, and really appreciated what they did.
When you retire from football, you have a career in punditry that you have now. But one of the other interesting aspects that I want to ask you about is your passion for music. You've got your own audio company producing headphones, similar to Dion Dublin.
Yeah, you can see my record collection behind me. Yeah, I've always been interested in music, and funny enough, I ended up with my own headphone brand, and that's basically come about because there's a manufacturer who was a Villa fan, and had the idea of getting me involved in a new brand and developing a new brand, and it's something that I've sort of jumped at and just wanted to be involved in. And you know, we ended up going to the Far East and you know, going to factories and sorting headphones out and you know, what they look like and how they sound. And it was brilliant, and it was so good, because it's one of those things where I've never had the inclination to sort of go into coaching or anything. I've always wanted to sort of work on the outside of football or get involved in some other industry. And it was great that I got involved in the audio industry, and it's still going now, which I'm really proud of. So yeah, I've still got my one foot in football, and then you know, another foot in other stuff as well.
The last question I've got for you, two random quick-fire questions based on the music and based on your career. First one, based on the music, what would you say your sort of favourite artists are? And the one based in football, as a Villa fan, what would you say your favourite kit was from your time playing for the Villa?
Oh gosh. Favourite artists, I like my hip hop. I like a Tribe Called Quest. Favourite shirt would have to be probably the white AST one that we played in Europe, because it was a shirt that wasn't sort of readily available that much, and we only wore it in a few times in Europe and whatnot, where we played all in white. And yeah, that's probably the one that I like wearing the most. My favourite Villa shirt of all time, though, has got to be the white one that we won the European Cup in.
Well, that's the thing. You've been a Villa fan, you've been a Villa player, and now you're an ambassador for the club as well. You've talked about your passion for the club and your career in the game. And once again, I just want to thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it.
No problem, Callum. Enjoyed it. Thank you.